It is 2 in the morning. You have just fallen back asleep after your second bathroom trip. And now, again, your body is waking you up. You lie there for a moment, hoping the feeling passes. It does not. So you get up. Again. By morning, you have slept in fragments. You are exhausted before the day has even begun. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet resignation has taken hold. This is just how sleep is now. I want to challenge that resignation today because for a significant number of adults over 60, the reason the bathroom keeps calling at night has nothing to do with the bladder at all. It has to do with what your body stopped getting enough of quietly, gradually, without a single obvious warning sign. Why this topic matters for healthy aging. Welcome to Healthy Aging Research. My name is Emily Hart, and this channel exists to give adults over 55 the kind of detailed, honest, evidence-informed guidance that a 10-minute doctor's appointment rarely has time to cover. Today we are talking about the nutritional side of nocturia, the medical term for waking from sleep to urinate. Not the bladder training side, not the fluid timing side, though both matter and we have covered those in other videos. Today, we are looking specifically at what happens inside your nervous system, your muscles, and your bladder wall when certain nutrients fall below the levels your body needs to function properly at night. This is a conversation most people never have with their doctor, and it may be the most important piece of the puzzle you have been missing. As always, please speak with your doctor before starting any new supplement, especially if you are on medication. What we cover today is educational guidance, not a prescription. The part of the story most people miss. Your bladder is not the problem. Your nervous system might be here as something that changes how most people think about nighttime urination. Your bladder does not decide when you need to go. Your nervous system does. A healthy bladder fills gradually over several hours. As it fills, it sends low-level signals to your brain, signals that, during sleep, your brain is supposed to suppress. The brain essentially says, "Not now. Keep sleeping. Wait until morning." But when the nervous system is under-resourced, when the nerves are not receiving the nutrients they need to fire accurately and consistently, that suppression system weakens. The signals leak through. Your brain receives what feels like an urgent message, and you wake up. For many adults over 60, this is exactly what is happening. The bladder is not broken. The nerve pathway carrying messages between the bladder and the brain has simply become unreliable, often because of nutritional gaps that have built up quietly over years. Now here is why this matters so much after 60 specifically. After 60, your digestive system absorbs several key vitamins and minerals less efficiently than it did at 40. Your skin produces less vitamin D from sunlight. Your appetite often shifts, reducing dietary variety. And the nervous system, which is doing the complex work of coordinating your bladder, your sleep, and your hormones simultaneously, becomes increasingly sensitive to any gap in its nutritional supply. The result is that deficiencies that might have been minor inconveniences at 50 become functionally significant at 65, and they often show up at night when the body's regulatory systems are working hardest. Let's go through the 5 nutrients most directly connected to this process, what each one does, what low levels look like in daily life, and how to address each one realistically. The 5 nutrients are Nutrient 1, vitamin B1. The nerve signal conductor. Let's start with the most overlooked nutrient in this entire conversation. Vitamin B1, also called thiamine, is essential for the health of your nervous system. And there is a specific cluster of nerve cells in your brain that coordinates bladder timing. This cluster is unusually sensitive to B1 levels. When B1 drops, the coordination between your brain and your bladder becomes unreliable, leading to urgency signals that arrive at the wrong time, including in the middle of the night. What makes this particularly relevant after 60 is the connection to blood sugar. Insulin resistance, which becomes increasingly common in the 6th and 7th decades of life, directly depletes B1 from the body. A diet that is higher in refined carbohydrates does the same. Many adults over 60 are walking around with lower B1 levels than their body needs, and they have no idea. Signs that your B1 may be running low include persistent fatigue that sleep does not fix, a sense of mental fogginess in the morning, and a tingling or numbness in the hands or feet. Alongside those, frequent nighttime urination that does not seem to have a clear cause. For food sources, nutritional yeast is one of the richest available. Sunflower seeds, pasture-raised eggs, and lean pork are also reliable contributors. For supplementation, there are 2 forms worth knowing about. The standard water-soluble form of B1 works well, but there is also a fat-soluble form called benfotiamine, which research suggests may penetrate nerve tissue more effectively, making it particularly useful for bladder-related nerve support. Many people notice a meaningful difference within 2 to 3 weeks. For those with a more significant deficiency, it may take 2 to 3 months of consistent supplementation. Nutrient 2, magnesium. The muscle and nerve calmer. If there is one nutrient that connects sleep quality and bladder control in a single mechanism, it is magnesium. Magnesium does 2 things simultaneously that are directly relevant to nocturia. First, it relaxes the smooth muscle wall of the bladder, allowing it to expand and hold urine rather than contracting prematurely. Second, it calms the nervous system pathways that carry urgency signals from your bladder to your brain. Think of it this way. Without adequate magnesium, your bladder muscle becomes reactive, jumping at signals that a well-supported bladder would simply absorb. And your nervous system becomes a poor filter, allowing urgency messages through that should be dampened during sleep. Research linked to the National Institutes of Health has explored magnesium's role in managing overactive bladder symptoms, and the findings consistently support its relevance. Separately, magnesium supports more stable blood sugar regulation through the night, which is its own independent driver of nighttime urination that we will come to shortly. Low magnesium often shows up not as a single dramatic symptom, but as a cluster of mild ones: difficulty falling or staying asleep, muscle cramps in the legs at night, constipation, and yes, the need to urinate more frequently than feels necessary. For food sources, prioritize pumpkin seeds, almonds, cashews, dark leafy greens like spinach and kale, and dark chocolate in small amounts. For supplementation, magnesium glycinate is the form most consistently recommended for sleep and nervous system support. It is gentle on the digestive system and well absorbed. Look for a product providing 300 to 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium. That is the actual magnesium content, not the total weight of the compound. Take it approximately 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Nutrient 3, vitamin D. The bladder wall regulator. Most people associate vitamin D with bone density and immunity. Far fewer people know that vitamin D receptors exist directly inside the bladder wall and its surrounding muscle tissue. This means vitamin D is not just a bystander in bladder health, it is an active participant. When levels are adequate, bladder muscles contract and relax in a coordinated, controlled way. When vitamin D is low, that coordination deteriorates. The bladder becomes either overactive, contracting too readily, or underactive, failing to empty completely. Both patterns contribute to nocturia. Research has found that both men and women with low vitamin D levels are significantly more likely to experience overactive bladder and nighttime urination. This is a consistent finding across multiple studies, and it is one that rarely comes up in standard conversations about nocturia. After 60, supplementing vitamin D is no longer optional for most people. It is genuinely necessary. Skin produces vitamin D from sunlight far less efficiently with age, and dietary sources alone are rarely sufficient to maintain optimal levels. Signs of low vitamin D include a persistent low mood, particularly in winter months, generalized fatigue, bone or muscle aches, and a tendency to pick up infections more easily. For food, fatty fish such as salmon and mackerel, egg yolks, and fortified dairy products all contribute. For supplementation, a daily dose of 1,000 to 2,000 IU is a reasonable starting point for most adults over 60, but your doctor can test your blood level and advise the amount that is right for your specific situation. Take it in the morning with a meal containing healthy fat for best absorption. Nutrient 4, pumpkin seed extract. The bladder's quiet supporter pumpkin seed extract has been used across generations, long before clinical research caught up to explain why it works. And work it does, particularly for the combination of bladder urgency and nighttime urination. Pumpkin seeds contain a combination of magnesium, zinc, and plant compounds called phytosterols. Together, these compounds strengthen the muscles supporting the bladder, improve its holding capacity, and reduce the frequency of urgency signals, particularly at night. For men specifically, pumpkin seed extract has an additional benefit. The same phytosterols that support bladder muscle function also support prostate health, and an enlarged prostate is one of the most common contributors to nighttime urination in men over 60. It presses on the urethra, creating a persistent low-level signal of urgency that disrupts sleep night after night. Regular pumpkin seed consumption or supplementation can work directly on this mechanism over time. You can benefit from eating a small handful of raw pumpkin seeds daily as part of a consistent routine. Alternatively, a daily supplement of around 500 milligrams is a commonly used amount. It is a gentle, well-tolerated option with both a long history of traditional use and a growing body of clinical evidence behind it. Nutrient 5, zinc. The hormonal balancer zinc is the nutrient in this group that most people have heard of, but almost always in the context of immunity. Its connection to bladder health and nighttime urination is far less known. Zinc plays 3 relevant roles here. First, it supports immune defenses in the urinary tract, reducing the likelihood of low-grade irritation that can trigger urgency signals. Second, it helps regulate the hormones that influence both prostate size in men and pelvic muscle tone in women. Third, zinc supports the integrity of the tissues lining the urinary tract, keeping them resilient rather than reactive. For men over 60, the prostate connection is particularly important. The prostate gland contains one of the highest concentrations of zinc of any tissue in the human body. When zinc falls, the hormonal environment around the prostate shifts, contributing over time to the gradual enlargement that interrupts sleep for so many older men. For women, zinc supports pelvic floor muscle strength and reduces bladder wall irritability, both relevant to the kind of urgency and nighttime waking we are discussing today. Food sources high in zinc include oysters, grass-fed beef, and pumpkin seeds, which, as you may have noticed, are genuinely one of the most complete single foods for bladder health available. For supplementation, zinc glycinate at around 15 to 25 milligrams per day is a reasonable approach. One important note: if you are supplementing zinc consistently, include a small amount of copper, around 1 to 2 milligrams, because sustained high zinc intake can deplete copper over time. Many good zinc supplements include copper for this reason. When TO test and when TO talk to your doctor, let me be clear about something important. Everything we have covered today is nutritional support. These nutrients work with your body's systems. They are not treatments for a diagnosed condition, and they are not a reason to delay a medical conversation if your symptoms warrant one. If your nighttime urination is new, has changed significantly in recent months, or is accompanied by pain, burning, blood in your urine, or a change in how much urine you are producing, please see your doctor promptly. These can signal a urinary tract infection, a kidney concern, prostate changes, or another condition that needs direct medical assessment. Your doctor can also test your levels of vitamin D, B12, magnesium, and zinc with a straightforward blood test. Knowing your actual levels, rather than guessing, is always the most useful starting point. A conversation with your doctor that includes these questions is far more valuable than any supplement purchased without that context. A simple daily routine here is how the nutritional approach translates into a realistic daily structure that you can bring to your doctor and adjust as needed. In the morning, Take your vitamin D with breakfast, ideally a meal that contains some healthy fat for better absorption. Drink water steadily across the morning and afternoon. 6 to 8 glasses across the day is a reasonable target for most adults, but taper your intake gently after 6 or 7 in the evening. Through your meals, focus on whole foods, quality protein, vegetables, and healthy fats. Reducing refined carbohydrates and added sugars is particularly relevant here, not just for general health, but because high blood sugar and insulin spikes through the night are a well-documented but rarely discussed driver of nighttime urination. When insulin rises, it signals the kidneys to produce more urine. This is a significant and correctable factor for many people. In the evening, take your magnesium glycinate 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Avoid caffeine and alcohol from mid-afternoon onwards. Both irritate the bladder lining directly and both disrupt the sleep architecture that would otherwise keep your brain from responding to bladder signals through the night. And if you have not already, consider adding a small daily portion of pumpkin seeds to your routine. They are not a dramatic intervention. They're a quiet, consistent one. And in bladder health, consistent and quiet is often where the real progress happens. A simple recap. Let's bring today together. Nocturia after 60 is often not a bladder problem in the way most people assume. It is frequently a nervous system problem, and the nervous system is deeply sensitive to the nutritional resources available to it. The 5 nutrients most directly connected to nighttime urination are vitamin B1 for nerve signal coordination, magnesium for bladder muscle relaxation and nervous system calm, vitamin D for bladder wall regulation, pumpkin seed extract for bladder capacity and prostate support, and zinc for hormonal balance and urinary tract integrity. None of these are quick fixes. None of them replace a medical assessment. But addressed consistently over weeks and months, they work on the underlying systems that control bladder function at night. And for many adults over 60, that is exactly where the real improvement begins. If today gave you something new to consider, a connection you had not made before, or a conversation you now feel ready to have with your doctor, that is exactly what this channel is here for. Before you go, there are 2 other videos on this channel that connect directly to today's topic. We have a detailed video on the 13 reasons nighttime urination happens after 60, covering everything from sleep apnea to blood pressure to blood sugar. And we have a dedicated video on the pelvic floor and bladder exercises that work alongside everything we cover today. Both are linked in the description below. And if you found this useful, please subscribe to Healthy Aging Research. Every week, we publish evidence-informed guidance designed specifically for adults over 55, calm, practical, and always grounded in real research. We would love to hear from you in the comments. Had you ever heard of the connection between B1 and bladder health before today? Or the vitamin D connection? Share your experience. Your comment may be exactly what someone else in this community needed to read. As always, please speak with your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your supplement routine, particularly if you have existing health conditions or are currently on medication. A provider who knows your full history is your best guide for everything we have discussed today. Thank you for spending this time with us at Healthy Aging Research. Take good care of yourself, and we will see you in the next one.